So adding electronic fingerprint to one of these documents has it's not an issue for you?
Not an issue for me because I'm still, this is a document that I'm signing as the agent for a legal fiction.
Okay. There's a separation there.
Yeah, so I create the separation. Yeah. A very, very important separation, because the government can come along. I mean, the government owns your house. The government, whether you like it or not, they actually own a security interest in your home. If you've bought your home, perhaps they gave you a $7,000 grant, or they have like a first home buyer's grant. Or when your child is born, I know when ours was born, they gave us $3,000 because they wanted to buy a security interest in our child, in our child's Strawman. So I've done that for our child. Is I've always signed as the agent for him. Okay, so that when he grows up, he will be his own agent. Okay, for his legal fiction, because you need the legal fiction in this commercial world to exist. Otherwise, you can't do business. You can't earn any money, because they've created this whole weird fiat legal system, which is like this giant matrix.
It's like a big game that you have to have a piece.
Yeah.
To move around and play the game with.
Yeah, but you can, by having a transmitting utility, you can stay out of the liabilities. I mean, I've got a private agreement between myself and the transmitting utility, whereas it holds me harmless against all claims. So if any claim came against that all capital letter fiction, I'm completely okay. Yeah. That's the kind of position that I think everyone needs to get themselves into, because at the moment you're all
And how easy
vulnerable.
is it to get yourself into that position?
It takes time. Probably, I'd say it would take at least 3 months if you started it today. To go through and change all of your details on your bank accounts, your electricity bill, your phone bill.
And what about tax and stuff like that?
Tax is an interesting one. Tax, you can challenge tax and taxation. However, you'd be silly to do so. There's a lot of people who challenge tax and never get anywhere. A lot of people who go to jail for not paying tax, right? All those
group
sorts
of
of
people
things.
that you really don't want to fight with.
Yeah, you don't want to kind of fight. You don't want to fight, and that's the whole point. There is no fighting. Bruce Lee said it once. He said, when his master came up to him and said, "What's the first thing that you do when you come across an opponent?" And Bruce Lee said, "There is no opponent." That was a very true statement. I never understood it at the time, but I do now. Because if you create an opponent, then
You've got to fight them.
You've got to fight it. There's no fighting. So, is there any questions in regard to, now you all understand basically who the Strawman is, and we can probably move on to something else. Okay, what should we cover next?
Was that all just the Strawman?
That was basically it was an introduction to the Strawman, who he is, how he got there, and basically how you guys interact with the corporations and the governments. Yeah.
So larger corporations or people that are very high up use this exact system to get...
Yeah, it's all set up to use the all caps. It's all set up. So when I went along to the library and the lady tried to subvert the system, I said, okay, I want you to put it in with the upper and lower case in my proper common English, common law English name. So she did that. It still printed it out in all caps. All of them, in every situation. I've tried the banks, I've tried the, in every situation, it still comes out in all caps. And it's not an error, and it's not a machine fault. It has to be that way. Okay. Yeah. The United States of America Corporation, for example, is a corporation. It's not a country. Okay. Its jurisdiction is the 10 square miles of Washington, D.C. Okay. It's a Masonic city on its own. And that's its jurisdiction. It has no jurisdiction over the rest of the continental United States of America, but the United States of America Corporation in all caps, with its president, because every corporation needs a president, this one happened to be a Bush, has no jurisdiction over the the continental United States and its in its citizens. But of course, you know, we're all aboard that citizenship again. Yeah. So okay, what should we talk about?
Very good, very good. Well, that's kind of a bit of an overview.
So let's talk about some more personal stuff, like how this might affect. Does anyone have any questions about how this stuff would affect each of us?
So have you come across anything in your life that's when you're in the situation just you can't do something, or it's just too difficult, or you pose problems?
Tax probably is the one that I've run up against. Now, I initially went the hard way and tried to fight against tax. Okay, I did an enormous amount of research and challenged the taxation department. And
to try not to pay tax? Or?
No, to try to get the taxation department to prove that there was a liability between me and the taxation department, and they couldn't do it. They couldn't prove that there was a connection. And so not only did I write the 20 questions, that they only got 3 right, I then produced a document based on that, and I gave them the supporting evidence, and I faxed it all off and never heard from them.
Would you happen to know or have a copy of those 20 questions?
I do. I have all of those on my
Would
machine.
I be able to get a copy?
Sure.
Is there someone I'd like to put them to?
Sure. You're welcome. Yeah, I'll get Rodrigo to forward them. I've got them probably as a document file, so I can send them to you. Yeah.
Oh, lovely.
Yeah, they're very interesting. But when I realised that there was no lawful money in circulation, it kind of discounted everything. You know, it kind of made it all funny to me, because I realised there was no taxable event. Anyway, so bang, there's one sentence and the whole lot's gone. So all that research that I did was just bollocks. Yeah. So getting back to the credit card thing, just for a second here. A friend of mine was $47,000 in debt. I was $5,000 in debt before as well. So I'd known. I followed the process and I got rid of my $5,000 debt. And a friend of mine said, "Can you do it for me?" And he had $47,000 in debt. 40,000 of it was a home loan to Bank SA, which is St George Bank, and 7,000 was to GE. Now, I'd already dealt with GE. I knew what goes on at GE, and so I knew how to handle them. It was a piece of cake, right? So it took all up, I think it was around 2 months to completely wipe his debt clean. And in the beginning he was very skeptical, and everyone, like his mother, was saying, you know, don't do it, you know, it's not going to work, it's not possible. Even my parents, you know, would say that. And I had to explain all this stuff very carefully, and I said, look, I'm not going to do anything wrong at all. I'm not going to put you into any harm, and we're not going to do anything illegal. All we're going to do is ask some questions and see if we can get an answer. So I wrote for him a half-page letter asking basically 4 or 5 questions, and I can give you a copy of that letter. Actually, I should probably grab my laptop right now, and we'll just take a momentary break. I'll grab my laptop.
So have you read more and further into actually doing this?
Yeah, well, there's a huge amount of documents that relate to all different sectors on this.
Yep.
Because basically Agent J has been studied this full on for a couple of years to you know, get a handle on it.
You believe me, it did my head in.
So did someone introduce you to this? Or?
Yeah, Tristan actually introduced me.